It's very appropriate we should end the formal session with the King's Own Museum, which was the first regimental museum ever to be established in 1929 as part of the galleries in the museum in Lancaster itself. I think the gunners actually claim to have the oldest museum, but what? Right. Their collection was very much a sort of teaching and study aid, but the King's Own was a definite attempt to preserve heritage, it's a great pleasure to introduce Eyob, who is studying for a PhD. No, you didn't study for a PhD.
Trying to finish.
That's it. At the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, but is attached to the King's Own Museum to sort out this knotty problem of do we call it plunder? Do we call it loot? Do we call it spoils of war? Do we call it reparations for the cost of it? In particular, King Tewodros' drum. But I gather we're not going to mention King Tewodros' drum. Okay, right. That stays put. It is a tricky and contentious area. Not specifically your subject, but it applies to almost every museum in that it has stuff that might be contentious, but please, as the oldest museum, tell us the problems and how to overcome them.
Thank you. Okay, so hello everybody. Last but hopefully not least, my name is Carolyn Dalton and I manage Lancaster City Museums, and this is my colleague Eyob Derillo, who's been the project officer for what we colloquially refer to as the Abyssinia project, at which point people go, what? Where's that? And we explain that it's modern day Ethiopia. So just to give you a bit of context about the project, the title is Abyssinia, Reappraising a Colonial-Era Legacy of the King's Own Royal Regiment. And the project aims are an improved understanding of the King's Own collection related to the 1868 Abyssinia expedition, to talk to Ethiopian, regimental and local Lancaster community members, to redisplay the area of the King's Own Museum relating to the expedition, and to produce a restitution and repatriation policy for the King's Own Museums and also Lancaster City Museums. I have to say we were fortunate. We started this journey in 2022 and we're fortunate enough to secure funding from the Museums Association Esme Fairbairn Collections Fund. I know Sarah's here today, so thank you to them. That was just over £53,000, and the City Museums have contributed £2,500, the King's Own Royal Regiment Museum Trust £2,000, and the Duke of Lancaster's Regiment £1,500, and we have also been supported with 115 hours of internship support from Lancaster University. I should explain that the City Museum, the City Council manage and curate and run the museum, and the King's Own trustees own the collection, and that's not a completely unusual way to have things. So we work in partnership with the trustees. And I'll be honest, we started looking at this because queries were coming in about the collection, and we thought, you know, it would be very, very useful to understand more about these objects. And we were fortunate enough to appoint my co-speaker, Eyob, who has considerable expertise in this area of study, and particularly Ethiopian manuscripts, to be our project officer, and he's done a fantastic job at that. And I'm going to let him take over for the next slide. Sorry.
Thank you. We're standing side by side because if I sit down and she gets up, we're gonna. It looks odd. So just to contextualize and give you a background, so Abyssinia is what is modern-day Ethiopia, and its relationship with Britain, Europe, goes back to the early medieval period, in that Henry IV was the first to send a letter to reach out to Abyssinia, and I have to really wrap up, because I don't want to get stuck in history. But what I'm trying to contextualize is both countries had a very long relationship. And in the 1800s, a petition was signed between Britain and Ethiopia, sort of ally against the expansion of the Ottoman Empire. In 1850, my time is good, Emperor Theodore, anglicized as Theodore, Tewodros becomes king and unifies Ethiopia, and Britain begins to actually work with him very well. Tewodros was a difficult character, so I've written a lot of articles. He was sort of trying to expand sort of the Christian kingdom in Ethiopia, also protect. So there was a great deal of frustration between him and Britain's response to military aid. And in 1867, he sends a letter to Queen Victoria, which he didn't receive a reply. And as a result, he imprisoned the British mission that were in Ethiopia, and this resulted in the 1868 Abyssinian expedition, which was a 400 march all the way from the Red Sea to where's Magdala. So that's the context. So the British troop make it to Magdala. The conflict didn't last very long, so it resulted in Tewodros killing himself. And accompanying the expedition were a group of museum professionals and experts who now we know were actually behind sort of the military's plan to collect manuscripts in Ethiopia. And Tewodros, he himself was also collecting manuscripts across Ethiopia, looting them. So this, something like 1,000 manuscripts, many other items fell into the hands of the soldiers. And this is what we really know about Magdala. So it's always about the collection that overshadows it. So the King's Own Regimental Museum doesn't have a great collection like the British Museum or the Victoria Museum. It has very small collection, significant in that they are objective agency where they tell the story about the soldiers' fascination of Abyssinia. So my job so far has been trying to study the provenance and catalog these objects to make them more accessible. So a couple of items there. There's a great deal of photographs. This is one of the most photographed expedition at the time. We have 3-4 manuscripts and a lot of these horns, which the expedition was very popular, which I'll talk about later. Oh, it's me. Oh, sorry, I continue. So going back on the provenance, we started cataloging what we can, trying to find, the items, even within the storage. There were very, very interesting items in the collection. So once we managed to kind of create a description list, there was one particular interest that I had was to connect the collection item with the particular soldier that was there. So we began working on the provenance, and we were really grateful to have people from the British Museum, National Museum of Scotland, and the Army Museum here, as well as V&A, to advise us on how to catalog these items and make them more accessible. Then later on, we had the opportunity, which I think the focus of this talk is about engagement and community. So I'll focus on that. So we wanted to reach out to the Ethiopian community to help us better understand these objects and also to understand what their views and opinions are. So when I say Ethiopian community here, I don't mean just random people on the street who are Ethiopians. The people we invited, the two people that you see there, Hammer, she is sort of the head of the Ethiopian community in Britain, which was established since 1945. She came with her colleague Fakadu, who is a deacon in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and the other person that you see, McConnell, he's a journalist. So we invited them to Lancaster for a day to see the collection, to give us opinion, and also to comment on how the items, were they described appropriately, and also to understand the sentiments, how Ethiopians feel about these objects. So they gave us back a very nice and interesting, diverse views. One view in particular that was very interesting was we were using the word decolonizing a lot, and it doesn't go well with Ethiopians because we were never colonized. So Ethiopians would say, "Why are you using the words decolonizing?" And then we had this is a later visit, I think. Yeah, this is go back one more. Yeah, but after this we had, so we had others who were using the word decolonizing. And for me in particular, as a scholar, what is interesting is using that term to make the collection more accessible, because you have a different opinion within the Ethiopian community which does not like that term at all. Doesn't go down well with Ethiopians, from my experience, most Ethiopians. But the question of the heritage and its loot does resonate with Ethiopians. So with Fakadu and Hamar, we had this discussion, and again, there was different opinions within the Ethiopian community. Some were not interested for the items to go back. Some wanted the items to go back, but where they were all in agreement were when it came to items that were sacred. That's because it's a very highly Christian country. So the other important visit we had very recently, how am I doing for time? Just nudge me or pull me, because things come back. So the other important visit we had, we managed, thanks to some aid we got from the Duke of Lancaster, we were able to invite about 10 Ethiopians from London to come to the museum and look at the collection, along with Father Abata, who is a representative of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church in Ethiopia from the Patriarch Office. So it was a really brilliant day of just talking about the collection item. The vast majority of young Ethiopians are not really aware about the collection item, let alone the expedition. And that also applies to a lot of British people, despite this expedition being very important history in the army. So we had that day to discuss about their opinions, and they posted the video, which got over like 50,000 views on YouTube. So there was a great interest to engage with the collection. So later on, we had the opportunity to be invited to the Ethiopian community in London, which was a brilliant day where everybody came out, and we managed to take some collection items, not manuscripts, but some bullets and photographs to engage directly with the community. It was very interesting, very diverse group of age. Again, there was a lot of discussion around restitution, which is a popular topic at the moment, and I've written a couple of articles on it. Not everyone had the same view. Most of these people in this community have made Britain their home, so some have said, no, we want to see these items here, why should they go back? Others, also complained why these items are hidden from the public, why aren't they displayed? So it was a very nice evening. We got to drink mead, so it's the national drink of Ethiopia, and we ate a lot. So it was really good also to take the collection to the community, to allow them to handle the collection, and I had a great deal of question about the history of the museum. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Eyob. And yes, I should say that the Ethiopian community were really hospitable. Eyob ended up eating a lot because we turned up about 2 days after they'd finished a fast, and I'm vegetarian, and so it was meat. It was, because they just had a period without meat.
So that's the Ethiopian Orthodox fasting. We don't eat meat or...
So Eyob ate a lot.
Yeah, I did.
I should say actually, with taking the objects down to London, we went by train. We didn't take particularly vulnerable objects. We took one of the pages from the manuscripts, and our constraints were vulnerability, portability, and insurance value. But I'm glad to say that we did manage to take a reasonable number of items down to the Ethiopian community. So passing on, Eyob's talked about our conversations with the Ethiopian community, and I think we referenced that the Duke of Lancaster's regiment very kindly supplied £1,500 for those 10 members of the community to come up to Lancaster to be able to see everything that was there. Brigadier Singleton, who's the colonel of the regiment, feels that heritage is very important to the operational effectiveness of the regiment, and it has been very supportive of this project. And we have been able to talk to a couple of members of the regiment, Lieutenant Colonel Philip Nathan and Captain Andy Adams, to gauge their views as well. And that's been interesting, but unfortunately not quite as frequently as we would have liked to, because they have very, very busy jobs, and it's been hard to actually be able to coordinate a conversation with them. So locally, we have also talked to the Lancaster Black History Group, and again, we had an event, and this seemed to work well, where people came, we put the objects out, people could have a look at them. Eyob was able to talk through them with people, and they had, again, very different perspectives, some ideas about where we could take the project, where we could go with this. So that was, again, different, but very valuable in terms of just getting those different views.
So far my work has been, I guess, to change the display. So the museum is not really visualized very well. It's quite an older museum, so where the Ethiopian items were displayed before, it was kind of cluttered. It didn't give a lot of context. And the previous curator, being a soldier, he was very much interested in the march, so there's a lot of maps and very text-heavy. But in this expedition, in this sort of display, I keep calling it exhibition, it's a permanent display. My intention, and I was talking to Carolyn, was to do three things. First, to talk about the collection, the object, the items, for general audience who might not know. So we thought about how do we first tell the story of the expedition, which is very important. Second, the roles of the soldiers who were there. So we came up with three sort of themes. So the first theme is sort of the expedition and the context, what happened, who was who were the main actors. And in that case, we have amazing items like the manuscript, the chalice that was given to one of the generals, who later became general. We have cross manuscripts, so we have important sort of bling items that I wanted to sort of display them where people learn about the materiality. And then the second display is about the Indian soldiers who always get forgotten in the story. So we have a panel with some photographs showing that. And then the last, the two more cases after that, is first the soldiers. So we have some interest. So the other collection that I haven't mentioned, we discovered a diary by General Woodgate, who died in the Boer War. He was a very, very good artist. He also came back with some items. So his diary, this is the first time we've discovered his diary, so we haven't really studied it yet. But there's some beautiful descriptions. So he tells his perspective of the war as a young person. And we have another soldier who was Lieutenant Borat, who was writing to his wife every day. So we have this view of their experience of Abyssinia. So one case is really about the soldiers, and we also have their uniforms and the biscuit that they took there. So that shows that aspect. And then the last case talks about shows how popular the Abyssinian expedition was. It was huge. It shaped, the imagination of so many soldiers. Those who served later on became generals. So it was a big event. It was in the illustrated news. So it talks about the popularity, but within that, we also talk about the loot and how, within the display, we talk about that. So the aim of this theme is to talk about the story of the soldiers and objects, and sort of Magdala and his background. Doing good for time.
So, just to round up, this has been a very important project, not only for the King's Own trustees, but for Lancaster City Museums. It's raised some interesting discussions. I think you've heard about the word decolonisation, which arouses quite strong emotions in quite a lot of people. And to be honest, we only use the word decolonisation in museum contexts. We talk otherwise about colonial era legacy or imperial era legacy. As Eyob was saying, Ethiopia was never a colony, but on the other hand, the troops came over from India, and that's where the expedition was launched from, and there were at least as many Indian soldiers from the Indian Army as there were from the British Army. So it has raised some interesting discussions. We faced some real challenges, particularly when wider financial pressures within the council saw the museum budgets reduced by 40% in between the project being granted and the project starting, and that has led to reduced staff capacity and opening hours. Britain's imperial legacy poses a significant challenge for many museums, and from their very nature, for military museums in particular. As Eyob has said, we've experienced a range of views, from don't give anything back to give everything back, but most people have been at points in between, and the Ethiopian community have been very welcoming, have really appreciated us being in touch to speak to them, and many people have thanked us for looking after these items. As museum people, we appreciate that history consists of multiple different stories and perspectives, and how we view these changes over time. The objects themselves don't change, but the way we look at them and think about them does. And one of the aims of this project has been to give our visitors a better understanding of that story in the round. So, next steps, I'll be honest, we don't really know what those are. The project is coming to an end. The display, as you can see, is not up yet, but it's well underway. In a couple of months' time. It will probably be up. We'll then have some promotion. We're not sure what happens next, but we'll do what we've done all the way through the project, which is just take it one step at a time, not cross our bridges before we come to them, don't overthink it, and just take it in a logical fashion as we come to each section, each challenge. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I just clarify one thing? You talked about the range of views about stuff being returned. I'm interested particularly, obviously, in the Ethiopian community. Was there a range of views there?
Yes, a full range of views.
A full range of views.
Yes.
But there wasn't a wholesale clamour of this should be in our country, or you made the point about, you've looked after it for so long. Thank you. Stuff might have been destroyed during the Italian campaign or whatever, but like the Elgin marbles.
So it's,
I'm encouraged by that engagement. I got the sense of if you engage, you will draw the sting a bit before it.
Yes. So access to the collection has always been the big issue. And
Access.
Access, yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay, Ethiopia has around, this is my estimation, over 1 million manuscripts across monasteries. It's littered with historical objects. There's a great deal of challenge looking after them. Now, in saying that, that doesn't mean, certain items should not go back. But, so the main objects that were taken at Magdala are now in British Museum, British Library, and Victoria. So access to these collections have been problematic for a long time. So that tend to upset a lot of Ethiopian scholars, including myself before, because we needed access to work with this collection. And then the second point about the return of this item, there are some sacred holy items that cannot be displayed in museums. This is the big problem, like the tablet that's in a British Museum. So when it comes to sacred items, all Ethiopian, including myself, would prefer those items in a place that could be better kept. But when we talk about other items, there's different opinions. This is where you're not going to have a one view on this. And working in a museum, you have to be able to accept everyone's view. Might not be what we want. And then the other thing that has to be very clear is that the Lancaster Museum is not the British Museum. So it's not a big museum with budget to talk about decolonizing and access to the collection. And also the soldiers didn't go to acquire collection items. So this is the story that we're trying to balance here, is to tell the story of the expedition. And they came back with objects. That's what we're saying. Yeah, it's very complicated, but access to the collection and making people understand the collection is important.
Access and explanation, right. Brilliant. Sorry, Carolyn.
Yes, sorry. Just to add one other thing. When I sort of say there's the range of views from the Ethiopian community, there are a couple of items that would class as human remains. And to be honest, we're speaking to the church, the trustees are discussing it. We are addressing that separately, to be honest. But there aren't any tablets within the King's Own collection, and that was something that came out from the Ethiopian community. Those seemed to be, the tablets were the things that they were really bothered about and really concerned about. Okay. Because they are so sacred.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. I think that's a real pointer for a lot of museums. Thanks, Ian.
Okay,
Thank you, Carolyn. Right.